worrying as we're fishing about the bones in the fishes that could get caught in our throats. And I'm worrying about the fishing licenses of the other fishermen fishing in our boat. If I ate one of the fishes and the bones got stuck in my throat, would the police throw me down on the ground as I choke and I choke and I choke and I choke and I choke? This world is a terrifying place. So I try, yes I try, yes I try, yes I try to keep a smile on my face. This world is a terrifying place. So I try, yes I try, yes I try, yes I try to keep a smile on my face. This world is a terrifying place. So I try, yes I try, yes I try, yes I try to keep a smile on my face. But I'm worried about the driver of the car. Yes, I'm worried about the driver of the car. Yes, I'm worried about the driver of the car. So multiple people have asked me, are you going to actually do that song? Like, are you going to put that song up on your other channel? We keep hearing pieces of it. Like, there's a mostly finished kind of demo version of that song. And yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to end up getting that up soon, but I want to record a music video for it. So I have not done that yet. And I want to release it with a music video, but it's making me think, you know what? I did a couple of tracks. If you're not on the David the Good Tunes channel, David the Good Tunes, if you look up David the Good Tunes, that's where I post the songs. So I know a lot of the songs that I do for this channel, for this gardening channel, they're not serious art. They're not even fantastic music. They're stupid. I mean, like rap songs about gardening, that is so dumb. It's just really dumb to like rap about sweet potatoes or pruning trees. It really is. It's really dumb. And I like to do music that's, you know, that's not dumb occasionally. So I you know, in the past, I spent huge amounts of time like arranging and writing out all the chords and everything. And then I get this channel. I'm like, I got to do a gardening video. You know what? I need to fill in that space. It would be much better if I put in a song or something. So I just put in a rap song about potatoes or whatever. So it's kind of fun, but it's not my serious music. So I'm putting serious music over at David the Good Tunes. I'm actually going to I'm going to do a live stream and stream the entire album that I put out in 2012. The album is called The Brain Spider Affair. Very serious album. It's entertaining at least. And I'm going to do a music stream over there probably tomorrow evening. It's a 1 hour long album and we can all suffer together through it. So that's a plug. If you're not subscribed to David the Good Tunes, you can go subscribe over there. And if you don't like my music, then definitely don't subscribe over there because that's where I put the music. So, anyhow, I welcome everybody. We've got 68 concurrent viewers according to this background here. It's nice to see you guys. It's always fun to set up a live stream and then just see people start showing up and I start recognizing all your names. It's like, oh man. And we get new people almost every stream. And it's like, you guys want to hear me talk? That's amazing. I can't believe it. So it's good to see you. I'm okay with dumb music. I kind of am too. It's like, when do your jokes become dad jokes? I guess it's after you have kids, and that's what's happened to my music too, I think. I don't know. So Karen, have a good night. Madalena, nice to see you. Looks like I'm sitting in a treehouse. Yeah, that's kind of the goal. I like the treehouse look. I like the look of wood. Hello, Jeremy in Nashville. And hello, AFJ third. Roy, Carolyn, My Father's World, Tiffany, Green Country Agroforestry sends a super chat. Groovy good tunes. Thank you very much, man. It's good to see you. Hope you have a fantastic spring in those beautiful gardens you're building. Jonathan, nice to see you. In Citra, oh yeah, my old stomping grounds there. Hey, Sean. J Math in Indiana. You got a little while before spring hits in earnest, I would say. Hey, Robert. Hey, TT's Double Wide Dream Farm. Sounds like my kind of dream farm. It's not about the house, it's about the farm. Double wide? Cool. I lived in a 8x12 cabin in the jungle for a while. About a year. Hey, Ian Chestnut. Hey, Alan. Tim. Dan. Pat. Tuscaloosa. Gersh. Rude Awakening. Catholic Before American. Acres Quarter Acre. Lala Farm, nice to see you. Just keep planting with Nemo from Colombia. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Stiegelman Family Farm, Peaceful Acres Farm. John, ZMB Lion, good to see you again. So, hey, I am going to talk about... Where did I put that book? Where's that book that kid wrote about the gardens with the groceries in them? I like that book. It's got a... I can't figure out how to get the shopping cart into my Corolla, though, so haven't been able to get one home. The church we've been going to, they gave me this giant mug, like a welcome mug, but it's the capacity is a little higher than a normal mug. I've got to watch my dosage. It's dangerous. So, this evening we're going to talk a little more about my 1000% original system. The most original gardening system ever invented in the history of the world. 1000% original. It absolutely sprang like Athena from the head of Zeus. Out of nowhere. Completely without predecessors, no ancestors, no intellectual forebearers, no giant shoulders that we're standing on top of. No, this is my 1000% original by the booklet now. The exciting new permaculture system that came out of just the void ex nihilo right here. Totally being serious. 1000% serious. Grocery row gardening. So I thought, it's about time for me to talk about this again because it is, I mean, it's not like I talk about it every day, but I talk about it every other day, and I think we've skipped a day since I've talked about it. So we're going to talk about this system. And I think that would be better with a little background music. Ooh, it sounds weird with a pick in it. Okay, this is the dosage. The dosage from that mug. That's why I'm doing this. I just gotta calm down. Calm down and talk about grocery row gardening. Grocery row gardening is 1000% original system. 1000% original. So, as I write in the book, this idea, right? Okay, I played with the idea of food forests. I played with the idea of annual gardens, and then one year, the precursor to this thing sort of kicked in. I had my food forests in the front yard, and I had my annual gardens in the backyard. Big sunny area in the backyard. I had tilled in manure and made compost and done all this work back there to build all this better annual soil where I was constantly rejuvenating and composting and rebuilding it. Meanwhile, in the front yard, I've got this perennial system that's not producing quite as much because it's young and it's building slowly up. And in the backyard, I'm like, this is my food fast, right? So collards and broccoli and beans and radishes and all that stuff, my annual gardens. But one of my daughters really liked roses. And she liked other flowers too. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be fun? Like, I was kind of obsessed with perennial crops, right? So I always had to keep saying, okay, I'm not going to plant perennials in my annual gardens because it makes them hard to work. And I've done this before. You put a peach tree in the middle of where you have been growing your beans, and now it makes it harder to till the area up or rake it up or clean it up or whatever. Now you're dealing with a tree and you can't just change the shape of beds. I love non-permanent raised beds. I don't like beds with wood sides on them or blocks or that sort of thing because I like to change. One year I might till that whole area and join a bunch of beds and turn them into a big melon patch. And then the next year I might turn them into single rows. And the next year I might be back to my 4-foot wide beds, make some salad gardens through there or something like that. I don't like the permanency because sometimes you go and you think I've got the finished final perfect system, and then you build all these beds or you get all these blocks or something and you put it all together and then you realize you got the ergonomics a little wrong, or you should have pointed them east and west instead of north and south, or it would be kind of nice to actually have put in a little pond over there. So you're because it's not earthworks, right? Like I can create the semblance. I could create nice beds by just roughing an area up and making some nice mounded beds. And I could change the shapes of them. I can rake them all out and change it. If I decide I don't want to grow all the way up to the fence, I'd rather have a gap between the fence and the first bed. It's no big deal for me to just rake the whole area over, or till it under, reshape it, make new beds. A couple years ago, I decided to experiment with what if I just made an 18-inch wide bed. And I grew my eggplants on an 18-inch wide bed with 3-foot pads on either side. So I've got this nice little mounded 18-inch hill with these eggplants going all down it so they could spread really wide and get big and make more eggplants. That's kind of cool. Previously, I liked my 4-foot wide beds. I experimented briefly with 5-foot wide beds like John Jeevons does, and I hated them. I thought they were horrible. And I've done beds that were a little narrower than that, like 3 feet. And, generally come back to that 4-foot, but I don't always. I want to play around and see. Sometimes I just like to do single rows with 3 feet in between. Not really do beds. So, looking at all of this stuff in my back garden area where I had the annuals, the perennials kept wanting to creep in, and I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do it. And then I thought, you know what? I'll make one permanent bed in there because I like the idea of having a space for all of the predators and the pollinators and the bees and the wasps and everybody to live. A bunker, a pest control bunker. So I made a 4-foot wide bed and I put permanent blocks around it. And I planted a bunch of herbs in it, and I let my daughter plant her rose collection in there. She had 4 or 5 different types of roses, so she planted the roses in there. Roses aren't the best for attracting pollinators or anything, but they were a hiding space for lizards and other good guys, so that's fine. Plus, it made my daughter happy. And then I thought, you know what? I could go vertical in this too, so I put in a Japanese persimmon, which is a pretty controllable persimmon. They don't get necessarily super huge, and you can keep them under control. So I put one in the middle, and then I put some raspberries of a couple of different varieties I wanted. I just had a couple of them, and I thought, I'm going to put them back here and take really good care of them. where they're always going to get the water that I give to the annual gardens. And I bet you I could make those trees and those shrubs grow faster. And my daughter's roses, instead of getting relegated to someplace in the front yard, because she's like, I'm just going to make a bed in the front yard. I'm like, no, don't do that, because we're not going to be back there. We're always in the annual gardens. So we built this bed. And it just filled up with flowers and herbs, and the roses did wonderfully. And there were goji berries that escaped from one side of it and started climbing through and making a big mess every year. And this Japanese persimmon got huge, and there were lots of bees and butterflies and lizards and stuff that were always in there. It was gorgeous. And I thought, man, I really, really like this. Now, I still think that there's a place for having dedicated annual production, and I think there's a place for dedicated perennial production. I found that the annuals I tried to grow in my regular food forest system tended to get overrun by the trees. In the second or third year, the trees are starting to go out, and the roots are starting to become more intense, and the annuals tend to disappear. Plus, I didn't pay that much attention to them because they weren't in my regular garden, so they were only getting whatever rain they got. I really just didn't want to go around that half-acre food forest and try to water everything with a hose. You know, annuals really need you to love them. They have very short lifespans. So if your lifespan is, 1 week, like a fruit fly, you don't have time to hang out with your buddies for 3 days and not look at girls, man. You've got to find a girl. The girl's got to lay her eggs. You better find some fruit. I mean, your whole life is going to be like, oh my gosh, I have to get married and find some fruit and lay eggs on it. Or it's over. The fruit flies next door, they own the future. Annuals are like that. Annuals are just, that it's live fast, die young. I mean, some annual crops are, 50 days? Like beans, 52 days to harvest. Holy moly, that's less than 2 months. If the first couple of weeks they don't have any good food in the soil, they get stunted. It's like losing your entire teenage years. You stop going, you stop eating good food and going to school at age 8, right? So you can miss a whole development period really, really fast with annuals. You got to take really good care of them. But the secret is, perennials actually like to be babied too. If you take really good care of fruit trees in the first year or two, they grow really fast. If they have good soil and regular water. So if you treat them like you would treat an annual and you put them right in your garden, we noticed that Japanese persimmon grew really, really fast. And the raspberries we planted around it grew really, really fast. The ones in the front yard grew okay in that food forest. But they got watered when they were put in, and they were watered every week or so. They did not get all that love and care. And oh my goodness, it makes a difference. So, this system of grocery row gardening, I had the idea, playing with the idea of polycultures, and how could I combine the long-term stability of a food forest with the organization and the fast production of an annual garden. Interesting. How could I do that? Well, I like the idea of edible hedges. And I really like the idea of pruning fruit trees to keep them small, which also reduces the root growth. So, like the mulberries that I put into my food forest, within a few years, the mulberry trees were over my head, shading a great big area. They were dropping mulberries into the chicken run. It was beautiful. But it was no longer any good back there for growing mustard, cabbages, etc. However, what if you could control that? What if you could keep your fruit trees hedge size and still grow annuals around them? And in a warmer climate with brutal sun in the summer like we have here in Alabama, You know, that little bit of shade is probably going to actually extend my seasons. So anyhow, the grocery row gardening thing came out of, you know, the food forest. It came out of the work of Stephen Subkowiak. He's the idea where I got the idea of taking your shopping cart down the rows like a grocery row. I love that idea. He has the permaculture orchard, really wide space, beautiful orchard spacing with all this other stuff growing in between. Very similar kind of an idea, and I loved it. I see we have a couple of Brazilians here. Hello, Brazil. Um, I got inspiration as well from Ernst Goetsch, who's down there in Brazil. So syntropic agriculture. For those of you that read Portuguese, some of the best material on syntropic agriculture is in there. So you can find it in Portuguese, and I only got to read some of the English translations, but there is some awesome agriculture taking place in your country. So, and I don't know how far away you are from what Ernst Goetsch is doing, but it would be totally worth visiting him if you could do it. That would be the garden guy for your area. However, Ernst Goetsch's system is made for a truly tropical climate, and I am in a temperate climate here. I'm in a zone 8. Somebody told me, they said, well, you're subtropical. It's like, well, yeah, I'm subtropical, but that means all the true tropical stuff dies in the winter, except for the stuff that freezes down and comes back, which is not really what I want. Like, what I want is mango trees in my yard, by golly, and that was taken away from me by the scamdemic. But the Lord had other plans, so here we are. I am doing the same thing that I was doing down in the tropics up here in a temperate climate. So I've got peaches and plums and pomegranates and all that fun stuff. And I had the blessing of being able to garden in the true tropics for 5 years and learn tons of stuff. That was awesome. But it's not as applicable for those of you that are in North America and in Europe and in the further southern parts of Australia, etc. So a lot of the people that are watching me, a lot of you guys are from temperate climates, not tropical climates. So showing up, on YouTube, you see in the YouTube, it's like, well, it's very interesting to see this guy growing coffee. It's really interesting to see this guy growing cocoa. But I can't do that. It's really neat how he layers his cassava and his bananas together, right? But it's not really that useful. So I think partly as we're all going through these difficult times together and the inflation and all of this difficulty, and maybe, I was supposed to come back. I mean, obviously I was supposed to come back because here I am, and I think that there's a plan in everything. So I'm back. So I decided, okay, well, I've got all this cool tropical stuff going. What about recreating this entire system with temperate plants? Because I was so excited about how well the system worked in the tropics that I was actually excited when I got here and the soil was bad and it's colder. It gets both hotter and colder. We get these freezes, down to these freezes down to like 20s, sometimes teens. That's rough. It's rough for tropical stuff, right? Now, I know, there you see, not in New York. Yeah, you're in New York, it's different. However, what I do think we have is we're building proof of concept by doing this across multiple climates. Somebody asked me the other day, would you write a survival gardening book for Oklahoma? That's hard. It's not the right climate. I don't like to write that much about climates that I have not personally gardened in. Somebody said, what about cold climate? Would you write a book on cold climate? Like, didn't you live in Vermont? Somebody wrote that. Didn't you live in Vermont or Maine at some point? It's like, no. I've never lived that far north. I don't know what I would do in a zone 3 system. I would have to learn a lot of stuff over again, and it would be very different. However, we do know that it works all the way in the tropics quite well, and it works well into a warm, temperate climate. So zones 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, cool. And I'm totally sure, having gardened in Tennessee, I'm sure that it would work up to zone 6. No problem. And the way I designed it, you don't have to change the system, you see. The system, the overview, the shaping of the system, the way the system is designed, show you I've got a picture in here. The way the system is designed is a simple, tried and true bed layout type of a system. Can you see that? See the pretty lady putting in garden beds. I don't know if that's really, it's a little blurry. You see the dirt under my fingernails. There we go. Okay. 4-foot wide beds, 3-foot wide pathways. They're just like traditional garden beds, except you're going to overlay an orchard, and the spacing is a little wider than traditional garden beds. Just mounded beds, 3-foot wide paths. You're going to put an orchard together, and you are planting annual gardens underneath it. That's what it is. I did the math already, and the overlay, and you're just overlaying an orchard on an annual garden, and then you're doing what's called backyard orchard culture. Scott Head just did a video on the backyard orchard culture concept. It comes from Dave Wilson Nurseries, and they did videos on it years ago. And then Ann Ralph wrote this little book called Grow a Little Fruit Tree, which I've recommended before. And so you are overlaying a perennial and an annual system, so you get the benefits of both systems. I'm reasonably certain it will all work. And so I did something that is risky. I wrote this little book as basically a white paper on the concept. It's not a huge book. This is the overview of the system before it's been extensively tested. Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening, or let's see here we go. This book has years worth of research and gardens in it. More food for less work. It's totally true. More food, less work. I grew the crops, I did the homework, I gardened in Florida for decades, and I wrote the book based on the easiest to grow crops. So Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening, totally regional, totally sticks to the state of Florida. I am an expert in Florida gardening. Florida Survival Gardening, which is my follow-up to that one. This book was based on extensive research. This is a much fatter book. This book has lots of illustrations in it, and it builds on it. And this is all about making the most out of the yard that you have and getting lots and lots of food out of it. And it has an illustration of a Baphemus in it, which I don't think you're going to see this quality in any other Florida gardening book. People do not put in the important stuff, or like how to tell the difference between Dioscorea alata and Dioscorea bulbifera, the poisonous versus the edible wild yam. Okay, so anyhow, you get the idea. This is heavily researched, heavily laid out. I hired, I hired a landscape architect to help me design systems for the book. Cool, right? This book is a book for crazy experimenters. This is the book where I wrote it and I said, okay, this is like the Communist Manifesto, except it's not communist. How about let's start a revolution? How about let's see if everybody wants to come along and test it for me? So what's going to happen is, for those of you that pick up this book and build this system, which is based on a bunch of other stuff that I've done in the past, but I've only got 2 years into it. I'm coming into my third, let me see, I started in 2020. Yes, I'm coming into my 3rd year. That's not that long on the system. I've seen the videos of backyard orchard culture. I have seen extensively pruned peach trees. I met one of the guys that helped develop the Tropic Beauty peach long, long ago, and saw how he pruned his trees and kept them small. I have seen how you can grow annual vegetables underneath trees. I have seen beautiful edible hedge systems, but I have not built it exactly like this for like 10 years where I could say, I have figured everything out and I know exactly how it works. No, instead, what I did was people kept saying, how did you build that? And I said, all right, I'll write a little book on it. I'll give you all my background research, my references. When I say it's 1,000% original, it's obviously a joke because there are so many people I borrowed from. I mean, Bill Mollison, Jeff Lawton. I'm getting like uptalk on every one, like Jeff Lawton, and like I borrowed from like Stefan Sapkowiak and like from Ernst Goch and like from like what's her name, and then that guy, the one with the beard. So anyhow, so I looked at all this at Gardening Manifesto. I looked at all of this stuff and I built the system, and I really, really liked how it worked in the first couple of years. And all right, here we go. I'll write a booklet on it. And then I'll keep researching as I go. So what we're doing now is here's the little manifesto version. And all you guys build the system. Anybody that can, you can build one of these systems in if you have a little chunk of your backyard. It doesn't have to be nearly so big as mine. You build it yourself in every climate that you could get, and then you write about it. And you tell me about it. And you send me photos. And then we put everybody's gardens into the next edition. How did it work? Well, Annie did this. Annie in Oklahoma writes, I built mine in 2021, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and now in 2024, I found that the peach trees were too close together, so I did this, and this worked really well, and this did not work really well, and these plants worked really well for me. Okay, now we've got another chapter. Now we've got another climate. So it's very interesting. And so what I'm kind of doing is crowdsourcing the system. Here's the system. Go build it and tell me how it works. Dan has a good question here. Okay, so in a few years, won't the trees shade out the plants around it? Now, this is where the backyard orchard culture idea comes in. So backyard orchard culture, if a tree, let's say the maximum height of a tree of a specific species might be 25 feet. Okay, so when the tree is young, you may cut that tree when you put it in the ground to 16 inches tall. So you got this whip, right? You got this 6-foot tree that's just about to come out of dormancy that you just got from Home Depot. You put it in the ground. You cut that thing down to like the height of your knee. Holy moly, you gotta kill it. No. That's how you keep it small. And then what it does is it puts out a few branches. Sometimes it puts out a whole ton of branches like this. You take out a few of them until you have it like this. You got like 3. So they got this vase shape. Or you take it down to just 2 pointing this way and you just bend them and let them go down the row. Trees are actually way more malleable than people think. I once saw a tamarind tree. A tamarind tree, it's a tropical tree. It gets like about 60 feet tall. Great big tree. Huge amounts of shade. It's well known for killing everything underneath it because it makes such dense shade. The power company had continued to cut this tree that was on the edge of our road. It was on one of the corners. And they had cut the center of it out. So there's this gnarly trunk of tree that's about 4 foot tall with branches going sideways out of it. And it was loaded with sweet tamarind pods. Normally, those tamarind pods would be harvested by maybe a couple of men and women with bamboo poles who would whack them out of the tree from way overhead, and then they would gather them up off of the ground. This tree, it was all reachable, and it wasn't even planned that way. It just happened that the power company didn't want that thing running through the line, so they kept chopping it down, and it kept growing back. And then eventually it fruited at a very small size where it could be harvested. Now, with trees that aren't quite so huge and trunky and vigorous as that, like peaches and plums and apples and pears, you can keep those trees. If you look up espalier, if you look up backyard orchard culture, if you look up planting multiple trees in one hole, if you look up training trees on wires, you will see the weirdest things. Festooning? I've seen a pear tree that goes up to about 3 foot high off the ground, and then it has 2 trunks that go sideways like this, about 4 feet in either direction, and then they go up. It looks like the goalposts at the end of a football field. American football. Wow. It's so neat. The tree is almost all in one plane. It's almost a 2-dimensional pear tree. I saw this tree in the backyard of this crumbling house that a friend of mine was trying to buy, but the people were asking a crazy price from it. There was some old lady that had lived there, and then she had to go to a care facility, and the whole thing was just rotting, and they didn't want to sell it, and they didn't want to fix it up because they didn't have enough money to fix it up or something, or they were asking some crazy price. But we went around and looked at the backyard, and I said, oh my gosh, look at that tree. It's like a 2D pear tree. You could garden on either side of it because the tree is all directed sideways. That's fascinating. So I've gotten very into, what can you do? How small can you keep things? And I did an experiment one year, I don't know, it must have been 2013 or something, where I left one peach tree alone when I planted it, and then another peach tree I cut really short. And the one that cut short did better, was more vigorous, and was a better tree than the one I just let grow. So I know that that side of it works, and so keeping the fruit trees under control, when you cut a tree back extensively too, it also drops roots. Now, I'm not going to say that you could put something that gets as large as, say, a pecan tree in there. I would love to do some experiments. I'd like 10 years on my own land at some point. I rent right now, so everything is all kind of really wee. Don't know if we're going to have 10 years. But I would love to see how small you could keep a pecan tree. I bet you could do more with them than people think. Mango trees will get 60 feet or more in height. They can be insanely huge down in the tropics. But I've seen mango trees that look like a big ball that I could reach the top of with my hand. Big ball of mango tree because they kept cutting the center of it out. I cut a big mango tree way back to waist height, and it grew back into a beautiful ball, and it made fruit again, and it was very easy to harvest. So trees are very malleable. So if the trees get out of control, that means you're not pruning. You are treating the trees much more intensively. You're growing the trees with better soil, more water, surrounded by your annual gardens. You're going to treat them like you really, really love them and grow them fast. But you're also going to prune the living daylights out of them. You're going to prune them twice a year, once for shape in the spring, and then once for vigor at the solstice in the summer. When they're at their peak of growth, you cut off a bunch of their growth after they fruited. Unless it's like in the first year and they're not making fruit. So then it's even easier. But sometime like right after they fruit, you're going to cut out about half of the tree. And you're going to do this repeatedly until you basically have a hedge tree. The ficus tree, there's another one. They planted these ficus hedges down in South Florida. Ficus benjamina is a gigantic member of the fig family, but it is also found in office buildings as a potted plant. That's a ficus. You'll see the silk fake, plastic versions of it, sometimes for sale in craft stores, Hobby Lobby, that sort of thing. But if you leave it alone and you just plant it in the ground, it grows into this massive tree. But if you keep pruning the living daylights out of it and you plant it close to other stuff, it makes a really nice privacy hedge. They put it in all these office parks and stuff down south. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, Tree says, all right, up isn't working. How about sideways? Yeah, prune hard and often. You can also bend branches sideways. Yeah, Lynn. Lynn says you can cut mangoes back. You can control them so much. It's very interesting. Bonsai Grove says, David, love the channel. I'm moving to Milton, Florida next week from Northern California. Can't wait to get growing. Finally, I'll have water. I'll miss the soil. Yeah, Milton, Florida's nice. Don't let anybody know you're from California. They'll want to kill you. Californians are not very popular, so just FYI, like, change your license plate as soon as possible, and don't vote like people vote in California, because they will not appreciate that in the Panhandle. The Panhandle is like, it's really, it's different. So, but anyhow, welcome to Florida. You wouldn't be that far away from me. Milton is a very beautiful area. There's the I went to the Blackwater Cafe over there with a friend. It was very nice. It's a pretty area. There's a lot of homesteaders and stuff around there. Dan says, can I take the limbs I prune and make more trees? Or do they always have to be grafted? It depends on the tree. I mean, figs, it's easy to root. Pomegranates are pretty easy. You can root some citrus. Stone fruit, not so easy. I have not tried rooting them. I don't bother with it. You could probably air layer them, but I wouldn't bother. If you can graft onto any kind of seedling, if you have a seedling plum, you can graft nectarines, plums, and peaches onto it. Yeah, do not California my Florida. Yeah, exactly. That's what Californians are not popular anywhere in the South. Right or wrong. Oh gosh, that's terrible, Natasha. Can you share a papaya tree? I'm not sure what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. Jordan, if you're going to prune a pecan tree, I would prune it when it's fully dormant, because I don't know what kind of rot you might introduce on a tree that's that big. So, sometimes you can get away with pruning something in the winter dormancy, and it works much better. So, let's, I'm going to take questions about this system. I am going to be doing some more videos on the grocery row gardening thing. Oh, yeah, from the redneck part. Yep. Awesome. Bonsai nursery. Yeah, it's a good climate for that. You're about zone 9 there, so it's easy. Oh, good job, Scott. Can you prune a papaya tree? Yes, you can, but they don't do very well when you do it. The secondary growth that they produce is very weak. I experimented with it. I did not like how it turned out, and the side growth tends to be weak and break, and also the middle of the tree sometimes rots out when you prune them. So I would not do it. I would just let it go straight up. You could try it, but the center of the tree is often hollow. It usually gets hollow, and it rots like crazy. So, today we went through the grocery row gardens, and I went through and I just kind of pruned off some stuff I didn't like. So anything that's going, if I've got a tree that's got its nice growth like this, the stuff that's going towards the center, it prunes out. I want it open. I want to be able to see it. We went and we pulled out some of the turnips that were in the ground, so we would have some turnips to eat. We got like 12 pounds of turnips because some of the turnips are getting really big. I don't know how good they're going to be because they've gotten huge in there, but the soil is really good. We are going to put in more biochar. We've taken out most of the weeds. I took out the chickweed and the other stuff that had grown over the winter because we've got to replace it with better edibles. I like chickweed, but I don't care about it that much. So we just go and feed it to the chickens. And one of my sons has guinea pigs, so the guinea pigs can eat it. Go eat it. The stuff that's kind of overflowing into the paths, if it's in the way, I just prune it off. I go out there with a pair of nippers, cut it off. The stuff that froze down and is dead, cut it off. Let it go. And then I chop the branches up into little bits, and I drop them right into the grocery rows. So all that stuff goes back and feeds the soil. And then what we're going to do is probably tomorrow we're going to be mulching, putting more mulch in the system. So the grocery rows, when they're done, become predominantly a no-till system, because once you've committed to that space and planted the trees, you can't just go and till the whole area under and make new beds and all that kind of stuff. You're committed. It's basically you're planting an orchard mixed in with vegetables. So you're not going to be able to go and change it. So make sure it's in the spot where you want to begin with. You can change all the stuff around the orchard, but the orchard that's pretty permanent. So you prune as you need, and you just change the vegetables, right? This first year I've been sticking in a lot of potatoes and stuff. Lots of potatoes. I stick potatoes in, and then I'm putting in more greens after the potatoes, and I'm going to be putting in a lot of beans. I love to put beans into the grocery row gardens because I know it's adding nitrogen, and any beans I don't get around to harvesting, I always just chop the plants down. Anything that grows on top of the ground, I just chop it down and throw it back into it. So you've got this beautiful no-till where the soil gets richer and richer and richer, and every time I prune, I just chop the pieces up, drop it right on the ground. And some stuff I grow deliberately just to chop up and throw on the ground, like the Tithonia diversifolia, the Mexican sunflower. If I were further north, I would probably plant Siberian pea shrub into it, which is like zone 6 to zone 3 or something. I think you can grow Siberian pea shrub. It is a leguminous, edible, useful plant. If I was all the way down in the deep tropics, I would put bananas all down the center of the rows and do like Ernst Goji does in Brazil and chop the banana trunks up and drop the leaves on the ground. You get all that biomass. I get the benefit. I have cannas that I put in there, so I can just chop, and I could throw those down. Those are some of my chop and drop. But we're playing with the system right now. So the overview, the plan of the system, the 4-foot wide beds, the spacing of the trees and the berries, etc. inside of it, what I write in the little booklet, all that stuff is the framework that you then play around inside of. You plug in whatever trees work for your climate. You plug in whatever berries work for your climate, whatever vegetables work for your climate, whatever you like to eat. It's going to change. You might want to do a medicinal garden instead of doing, one that's just a bunch of sweet potatoes and apples. You could have apples with a sweet potato understory, or you could do onions around pear trees or whatever you wanted to. You can create different guilds and play inside of the system, but you have this framework that is really organized, and the more diversity you put inside of it, the more different variety of things that are in it, the more exciting it gets in the spring. Like right now I've got daylilies popping up, and I've got cannas popping up, and I've got asparagus coming up, and I've got potatoes coming up, and soon I've got some squash that's self-seeded in there. That's really cool. I threw some of the squash back in there to rot. They're self-seeding. I think later in the year I'm going to get tons and tons of tomatoes and peppers. After we get a couple of good rains and some warm weather, it all comes up. Of course I can play the piano. That's why I have the piano, so I could play it. I actually learned the piano before I learned the guitar, and I learned guitar later because it was hard to bring the piano with me to impress girls, but a guitar was portable. So I will take any questions if you've got any questions. I think that you could grow this in any climate, and I'm really, really interested. If you plant it, if you grow it, what are you planting? What are you using the system for? Okay, I'm just giving you a template. I know a lot of people really like a template. They like organization, and I have been very guilty of just saying, go out and plant something, without giving people a plan, without saying, here, look it. Measure it like this, and measure it like this, and plant the things this far apart. So this time I deliberately said, okay, I am giving a template, but the anarchistic, exciting, fun, crazy side still has to come out. Okay, now you get to decide how you're going to do it. Okay, my mother-in-law is very, very good at making quilts. She makes beautiful quilts. Now, she knows the patterns that she's going to use, like what shapes you fit together, how much stitching edge, bleed, I don't know what they call it, seam allowance. Oh man, I'm like, oh, it's all in there. Or yeah. Seam allowance. How much seam allowance you need for this triangle to fit to this triangle to fit to this triangle. How much you need for your border. You know, how the batting goes in. There's the technical side of making a quilt. You have to do the technical side correctly or you don't get a quilt. But then inside of that, you get to say, oh, what kind of am I going to do a herringbone pattern? Am I going to do a sunbonnet Sioux quilt? Am I going to do a classic, like, Amish star design quilt? You know, what are you going to do? Colonial era? Are you going to do something wild and funky? Or are you going to do applique, etc.? You have to know the framework of how quilting works and how the pieces fit, and you have to have your measurements right. But then inside of it, you can be as creative as you want. You can go and get vintage fabrics and put them together. You can go and get brand new, crazy, wild fabrics. You can cross it. You can go completely a complementary color scheme with reds and greens. There's my Christmas quilt. It's totally complementary. Blue and orange, right? Or you could say, I'm going to do an analogous color scheme. I'm going to do a yellow, orange, and red. It's going to be really warm, and I'm going to do a white boundary on it. Or I'm going to do something really striking. Or I'm going to do earth tones. I'm going to do greens and browns. Or I'm going to do blue and white like a piece of Delft pottery. But all of that stuff, that creativity that you've got to make the quilt, is going over a structure that works. You know you're going to end up with a finished quilt. What you're doing is you're filling in the interior. So the grocery row gardening idea is kind of the interior. I know that these 4-foot wide beds are good for the human form. Normal sized humans, men and women, and even children, can reach to the center of a 4-foot wide bed and work it. It's easy. And I know that if my pathway is a 3 foot, which seems kind of excessive, but I know I can walk past another person on a 3-foot wide row, so I can have friends, family, children, a puppy, or whatever else going up and down the row with me without tiptoeing in between the beds. I don't want to walk on the beds. I don't want to crush the beds down, so I need that space. But it also is really good for materials handling. It's also really good when I want to dump a pile of compost or something in the middle and start throwing it down. You've got the space to work inside of. I can roll a garden cart down there without crushing any of the new seedlings coming up. I cannot do that. I can make longer rows, but I cannot take a garden cart down an 18-inch wide pathway. Then I'm stuck with a single wheelbarrow, and it's difficult. You've got to kind of come up behind it and throw it over, and you can't turn around easily. You can't walk around it, right? So some of it, I know the ergonomics of the system work because that's the way I designed it. First, I started with 2-foot wide paths, discovered that that wasn't very good for materials handling and for multiple people being in the garden, so I switched it to the 3-foot wide. That also gives you less water usage because that 3-foot wide pathway allows the roots can go underneath that and get water out of that bank of water, that wider spacing effect that you learned about in Water-Wise Gardening. If you don't have Water-Wise Gardening, definitely get that book. It's really amazing. Steve Solomon. But that wide, it's got so many multiple benefits. We've got the benefits of no-till. We've got the benefits of the 4-foot wide accessible bed. We've got the benefits of backyard orchard culture, edible hedges. You've got the benefits of the fast production of annual gardens with the long-term production of a perennial orchard. You've got a food forest system, but the food forest system is organized into blocks that are easier to maintain. You can take it one piece at a time and it doesn't become overwhelming, and it's more organized for a type of person that doesn't necessarily want a big anarchistic system. So in the past, I know I've given you guys anarchistic system, but this one is designed. But it's up to you to fill in what you want on the inside of it. And now I will play the piano. Just so you can see, I can play the piano. There. One of my favorite instruments. First one I learned. Hello from Trinidad. All right, I'll take questions. Don says, anyone here go out with a flashlight just to see the growth and enjoy the pride of the garden? Oh, yeah, there have been times. I have thought about installing stadium lights outside so I can turn on the lights and garden in at night. It's really a problem. Oh my goodness, man. Virginia says, Zone 9 clay in a square space, run rows north to south, same row spacing with clay. Plums grow like wild here. The book was a great fast read. Well, thank you very much. I have run them north, south, and east and west, and I haven't noticed a difference particularly. I think that makes more of a difference as you move farther north. You need maximum sun exposure. I did find that my beds, I have to plant the beds on the south end of it. I should not have stuff that's super tall there because it will block out as the day continues. But I'm sort of running kind of like a southeast to northwest or something like that. It's a little uneven, but it kind of just worked off of the back of the house. So it's I think you're going to have probably better luck running them north to south, probably in a northern, a farther north climate, and zone 9 is not going to matter. I would do the same row spacing with clay, yeah, just because the ergonomics of it. And if you have plums that grow like wild there, you can also graft your nectarines and peaches on top of them and use that vigor of those plum rootstocks. Let me see. Oh, good find, Dan. Dan got some Dioscorea alata starts from an Etsy shop. Cool. Hey, Joe. Nice to see you. Yeah, just get started with some of the best advice I ever heard. I absolutely agree with you, because most times you get scared. Sky Arden says, how would you grow potatoes in Tennessee rich heavy clay? I grew potatoes in Tennessee rich heavy clay. I had this rocky hard clay that I had to get a pickaxe to plant fruit trees with. What I did was I put down a foot of straw and leaves and tree company mulch shreddings 1 year. The next year I raked it back and I planted potatoes, and then I just pulled the mulch back over it. I did not really dig that far into the dirt, and the potatoes mostly grew inside of the mulch. And I also noticed that after deep mulching for a year, particularly through the winter when it's wet there and you're getting lots of rain, the humus started to really break down and the worms started to move into it, and my clay became something workable. But for quick fixes on clay, put in some gypsum. Gypsum will help flocculate the clay and loosen it up. You can throw a lot of it around without hurting anything. I would throw some gypsum on it and see if you loosened it up. But I would probably try to break the soil up, and then I would mound it over the potatoes. Like dig into the clay and mound up over the top. So, if you were to borrow a tiller and till the area, you're really only going to get 5 or 6 inches deep, which is not great. So what you do is you till to 5 or 6 inches deep, you make a little furrow in there, and you put your potatoes in it, and then you dig from the sides to make higher mounds on top of it. So you basically end up growing your potatoes in about 10 to 12 inches of soil. Is Florida cranberry decent for hedge material in a grocery row? Yeah, but only good for 1 year. I mean, it looks pretty for 1 year, but it does I did plant them in the middle, and they did well, but they are pretty much an annual, so they kick off on you. Definitely elderberry to promote decomposition and nutrient cycling. Elder is good. Elderberry, I need to get a couple of them in there. I've got to go dig some up. Michael says, what's a good companion for okra in a grocery row bed? You want anything that's going to be shorter than the okra. So the okra goes straight up. Anything that you could put underneath it doesn't matter. I use sweet potatoes. They did well underneath it. But you could put greens underneath it. We put beans underneath the part of it. We had zipper peas we put underneath. Dude, as Amy says, if things like weeds and such have gone to seed, if they're weeds, I generally throw them to the chickens if they've gone to seed. Sean says, do sacred geometry in your quilts and sell them to hippies. That's funny. Double wedding ring. There you go. Yep, that's a pretty one. Liberty Not Licensed says, I'm excited about our recently planted D to the G special select Everglades tomatoes. Oh, those are my daughters. Yeah, she should have seeds again soon. She sold out. Trying multiple systems with them. Diversification of investment for risk management. Cool. Riverdale Garden says, always wanted to make a quilt out of my old concert shirts. You're going from like being a punk to a grandmother, Riverdale Gardens. I remember when I saw Megadeth. Oh my, that was so much fun. Oh, the mosh pit was crazy. I couldn't do that now. I'd break my hip. I saw a guy wearing a Nirvana shirt, you know, the smiley face with the X'd out eyes. Middle-aged guy with a gut. And I was like, we were teenagers yesterday. He's middle-aged. I'm not. Sad. Vonnery says, I've had stone fruit seeds in the refrigerator since September. Nothing is sprouting. Any idea how much longer? I would just say they're not. I would say they're dead. Usually the stone fruits start rooting out in about 3 months. I usually give them 4 to 5, but sometimes they rot. I have not used toll for plant netting. I'm not familiar with this, but I don't do much with netting. I tend to just let the pests eat stuff because I'm really lazy. I like batik too. I think it's beautiful. I have this weird affinity for crafts, arts and crafts, and handmade stuff. Absolutely love seeing knitting and crocheting and quilting and painting and pottery. I find it so beautiful to watch people work with their hands and make something gorgeous. Even if I don't have the patience for it, I really love to see it. Scott says, suggesting to prune or chop out of control goji berry canes. They're 5 feet long, grow to the bottom of a temporary pot. I would cut the living daylights out of them, Scott. Mine went nuts, and I just chopped the living daylights out of them. They will spread like crazy, and they tend to root into the ground. Also, I noticed that any of the pieces that I stuck into the ground also rooted. They root super, super easy. So I would probably cut them, and I would just, I would throw them someplace to dry out where they're not going to re-root, because I actually chopped and dropped some of them, and then all the pieces re-rooted. Like, I threw a bunch of them into one corner. They were just laying on top of the ground, and next thing I knew, I had a thicket of goji berries there. And so you have to, if you cut them, just cut them and yank them. Put your gloves on, cut the living daylights out of them. You're not going to kill them. And then just throw them someplace to dry, or just throw them on your fire to cook them and use the ashes. Otherwise, they will re-root extensively. In our climate, if they like your area and they're already growing like they are, they're gonna become a weed. I don't know if they're gonna do that where I am, because my old garden, the pH was about 6.7, and gojis tend to like it sweet. And here I have it real sour. The soil is 5.4, so they're not supposed to like that. I don't know. I don't know, that they don't seem super aggressive here. Mooney Makes says, I want to till my whole yard and just throw radish seeds all over it, so my yard just becomes a giant radish blob in 1 month. Maybe all the radishes will join together into one giant radish. That would be cool. Green Country Agroforestry says, sweet potatoes go well under anything, and they can be used as a vine too. Jerry says, if you're growing many herbs in the grocery row, basil worked really well against blueberries last year. We have a few. We don't have a ton. You know, we've got, I had some stevia. There's a really good stevia plant out there, and it's coming back from the ground. We have some stevia. I'm going to put some moringa in there. We have some lemon balm. A few others. I don't really have a great herb growing setup at the moment. I've thought about doing, dedicating a bed to more herbs, but I keep planting vegetables instead. I have not used cover crops. Like, I have not used sun hemp. I've been thinking about getting some sun hemp. I would love to do it, but I have grown sorghum Sudan. I have used pigeon peas as a cover crop. I have used black-eyed peas. I've used wheat, and winter rye, and oats, and all kinds of stuff. So, well, thank you, Sky. Good luck. Vote for Meg says, "How do I start a worm farm?" I have my worms in a bathtub. You can look up the bathtub worm video if you want, but I don't really, I don't farm them so much, but they are pretty easy to grow. Jared sends a super chat and says, "Looking forward to being an anarchistic guinea pig for you after picking up the book." Oh, that's awesome. We're crowdsourcing the idea. I want people trying it, everywhere. Alaska, Fiji. It'd be awesome. I have some black locust, pea shrub, rugosa rose, and American persimmon seeds that I'm dying to play with. I'd love to pick your brain. Yeah, all of those are good. I actually have black locust and rugosa rose going right now. American persimmons like chilling before they germinate. I put them in the ground and they came up after winter in North Florida. I have also stuck them in the fridge and then planted them in the spring and had them come up. I put a bunch of them in pots. Hey, Boyd. Dulce0403 made a vat of fetid swamp water. Good. That's the way to do it. And Seminole Pumpkin and Amaranth. Yeah, I tried, the pumpkins tend to go a little insane in the grocery row gardens. You can do them, but then they take over the pathways and you're just stuck. Oh, that's awesome, Luke. Luke says, made a cutting from a Cherokee purple tomato plant that grew in 2021. Now 2022 is in a 4-gallon pot with blooms at 4 feet tall. North Carolina Zone 7. That's awesome. Craig LaHolliere, who wrote the book Epic Tomatoes, is in North Carolina, and he's the original namer of the Cherokee purple. The Homesteading Channel with Brian McClellan. Brian says, I'm starting a mutt goat herd, started with Pygmy Nigerian cross, and plan on getting Kiko to help with the independence. How's your stock doing? Oh, they're doing fine. Mine are mostly Nubian with a little bit of Pygmy mixed in and maybe some Saanen mixed in. But I need to get them bred because we actually have to get milk out of them, and it's kind of ridiculous. They need to be bred. They're just old enough now, so I need to do it. Vegan World says, love your show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's see. Great Works Chiropractic says, I use my old shirts for mulch. They work great. Yeah, hey, I like to wear 100% cotton. If I could get linen t-shirts, I would, because I've heard they're awesome. Riverdale Garden says, I know, I've seen Megadeth 3 times. I know Korn is classic rock. Oh my goodness. I gotta say, I almost have to compost this shirt that I'm wearing. I'll show you. Okay, so this is a great shirt. This was made for me by Amy Stanley, the Great Florida Food Forest. The problem is, I've bulked out of it. Okay, this is a medium shirt, so it kind of I'm starting to look like millennial, except that I have muscles, But I've been going to the gym for the last year. And so my medium shirts, it doesn't work anymore. It's like they're riding up on my sleeves. I'm like, was I ever that skinny? Oh my gosh. I mean, if I quit working out for a year, I could go back. Oh, who knows though? I might just get fat. But I was 153 pounds at the beginning of the pandemic when I was working out in the garden all the time. 153 pounds. At 6'1", and now I am about 174 pounds. because I have consistently gone. It'll be my 1 year anniversary of consistent working out in 11 days, 12 days. March 15th is when I started. And I tell you, I was like, I've done concerted effort over time before, but not with that. I always was like, I don't have time to work out, or I don't want to work out. I don't want to, and, but I had time. I figured out I had time to write books. I had time to get my gardens in. I had time to read the Bible with the kids and do some of these other things. But I was like, working out, I don't want to take, I don't want to do that. But I've really seen that it has made a good effect. I am stronger now. I feel better. I have more energy. Energy levels are great. And it's because of concerted effort over time. But it was one of those things, I started working out multiple times. I'd work out for a few months and then I'd quit. This time I actually stuck to it, and it feels really good to be, fit for me. I'm never going to be a fitness model, but it feels good. So, so this shirt, I love this shirt, but it's kind of looking dumb on me now. I'm going to have Amy make me a large. I've had to, I have a bunch of shirts that are mediums. I've been giving it away to my teenage boys. I'm like, I can't wear that shirt anymore, so. Let's see. It's way too TMI. It's like the next thing I'll be posting, bathroom mirror selfies. I'm not going to do that to you. A new t-shirt. Compost this shirt. Oh, that's awesome. Amber says, what area are you located in? We may be moving to a climate in the eastern U.S. I am in lower Alabama. Redneck Central. Donald says, good evening from North Alabama. I enjoy your videos and have learned several things. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Glad you're here. Yeah, it's actually a 3XL. Hit him with the flex. Oh my gosh. Men's health cover, leaning on a motorcycle. Oh yeah, I need to lean on a tractor. Oh my gosh. Cool, Claudine. South Carolina, all right. Yeah, I agree. Pretty pleased with the bathroom mirror selfies. Oh my gosh. Hugh says, I'm short for my weight too. Probably should be 6'11". When I first started pushing, I had a dumbbell in each arm. My brother-in-law, who's a real gym rat, like he stays fit. He's always looked really good, and I was like, man, okay, I don't know. He always looks great, right? He's like Beachbody worthy, kind of just a tough looking guy, great shape, very friendly too. He's not a jerk, but he's like, dude, come on, I'll take you to my gym. So we went to like LA Fitness, in Fort Lauderdale, and he's like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do chest presses so you don't hurt your shoulders, because I had hurt my shoulders in the past, which had stopped one of my previous gym runs. And he's like, you're going to take a dumbbell on either arm, and he says you just push them forwards, and he says, and you're going to be balancing them, and if it gets too much, you just drop it. It's not like a barbell, okay? You're less likely to injure yourself, so you just let it go. Okay. So when I first started doing that, I was doing like 35 pounds per arm, I think. So a year later, I'm pushing 75 pounds in each arm, doing this. Lay on my back, chest press it up, 75 pounds per arm. And that feels good. When I first started doing squats, it's like 25 pounds on either side of a 44 pound bar. I don't know why they do the bar at 20 kilograms, but then, 25 on either side. But now I can push over 200. I can squat over 200 pounds. Now I know that's not awesome. I'm not like a super fitness guy or whatever. But from where I started at around 105 pounds or something like that, that's pretty good. And my legs got thicker. I always had legs like a stork. So it feels good, Yeah, really the trick is like to eat like raw liver every day. Yeah. Jetty says, D to the G, the rainstorm is hitting here tonight, heading your way. I hope so. It's been really dry. Everything's dusty. Good guide to the bro code. Have you ever heard of the Go Mad? Go Mad, gallon of milk a day. So if you're like really, really skinny, you work out and you drink a gallon of milk every single day. And between the lactose in it and the fat and the protein, you will bulk up. You will gain weight. You will get pumped. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Eat your own liver. Be a man. Christiane says, hi from Germany. Hello, Germany. Dulce0403 says, how about an update on the temperate experiments? That's a good question. There's nothing to show right now because we have just come out of, 4 or 5 months of cold weather. So there are some carrots over there, I think, that look pretty good, but I don't really have an idea of the long term at this point. I did get some more clay to do more terra preta beds. I've got more burning that I've done. We have to see if long term it actually works or if it just worked well the first season because of all the nutrients we dumped in it. Are those nutrients going to burn out, or is it going to become a permanent thing with the clay and the charcoal? And also, is the tree that's right next to it just going to suck all that fertility and awesomeness out of it? So we should know more about how it's doing in a couple of months when that area is growing again. Green Country Agroforestry says, get 5-gallon buckets and carry your water to your plants. 8 pounds a gallon, 40 pounds on each side. Builds that upper body strength real quick. Yes, exactly. Works really well. That's called the farmer's carry. And sometimes people ask me, why are you working so hard? Why are you carrying that water that far? Or why are you hauling stuff like that? Or why would you use a hand tool when you could do this? Why don't you just get, do that with this? Or, that's a lot of digging. Okay, all of those motions that you're doing are beneficial to your body. You know how if you have a bad back, you should not avoid lifting things. Now, there are times when you have acute problems, but your muscles support your back. I used to have back issues because I pulled my back out badly. I damaged something in it when I was in my 20s. I had problems moving furniture. I had problems lifting things. I had all kinds of problems. But as I have worked harder in the garden and moved things regularly and deliberately lifted heavy stuff carefully, the back issues have gone away. I also increased the amount of fat that I have eaten. I eat a very high fat, high cholesterol diet with lots of nutrient dense vegetables. So my muscles and everything can be rebuilt and my bones can be rebuilt. I drink bone broth regularly. I drink raw milk. I eat our high nutrient dense diets. I eat a lot of farm eggs. I usually have 5 eggs for breakfast every day. Sometimes with greens, usually with kelp meal mixed in and with some bacon. I drink kefir regularly. So I'm getting a lot of good animal products, a lot of nutrient dense stuff. And if I eat grains, I want to eat grains that have been soaked first. We could probably do a nutrition stream at some point. I mean, I am not I'm healthy. I look pretty good, I guess, for being in my 40s. But I'm not the guy that people look at and go, gosh, I wish I looked like him. Look at that guy. My body's slightly crooked. I'm kind of gawky looking. I got weird teeth. There are some people that look like they were made to do fitness advertisements. I am very happy with what I was given, and I wouldn't trade. I'm comfortable, but I can't imagine doing the fitness guru thing. There's got to be a really awesome genetics component on it that I don't have. Where it's like no matter how fit or whatever it got, I'm never gonna look that great. And it may just be I have this theory that if your IQ is really really high, that there's always something else weird, like you can't remember how to tie your shoes, or maybe your body is misshapen. Maybe have a really weird skull shape. I don't know, but that's enough of that. I also go barefoot a lot to, to balance my energy. But I'm not a hippie. By golly. Pasture Review Project says, I have all kinds of back problems that are exacerbated by sitting or relieved by exercise. Yeah, I changed the chair in my office and that made a big difference. It used to hurt me. Yep, movement gets blood to the stiff areas, and actually your blood naturally thins and moves faster, they have found, when your feet are in the dirt. When your electrical currents are grounded to the earth, so you stick your feet in some wet soil, put your hands in some wet soil, your blood starts flowing better. If you go and get as much sunshine as possible, wear as little bit of clothes as you can get away with, and go soak in the sun, both the UV and the infrared, have all kinds of benefits for your body. And I think we're kind of just really detached. We've got, we cover ourselves in sunscreen and clothing, and we put on rubber-soled shoes that disconnect us from the earth. We don't get our hands dirty. We don't interact with animals and with the soil like we should. And so our body's immune systems are off, our energy field is off, our skin is constantly and always covered and not getting the sun that you should get and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of unnatural stuff. Plus, we eat garbage food all the time. I mean, like I wrote the other day, we shouldn't be eating soybean oil and canola oil and corn oil and all that stuff. That messes you up. Our bodies are not adapted to it because that's not traditionally what anybody ate. Whether or not you're a creationist or an evolutionist or whatever, just look at human history and say, what did people eat? They did not eat cottonseed oil. They did not eat microwavable burritos. So. Anyhow. So, that's probably enough of that. I have a few ideas on health, but I'm mostly a gardener, so... When my eldest daughter was little... Let's see, I'm going to sing that. When my eldest daughter was little, she started eating dirt and my wife freaked out. I went in the house and I got her a spoon. Ruth says, where do you get field corn seed? Look for, flower corn, dent corn, flint corn. It's in a lot of gardening seed catalogs. You're not buying sweet corn. Just go and look for, hickory king corn, bloody butcher corn, Zokin, I don't even know how you say it, Oaxacan. Somebody told me how to pronounce it once. I don't even know how to say it. Green corn, Hopi blue Indian corn. There's a lot of them. Flower corn, traditional flower corns. There's a lot of Indian corns that are fantastic. So Dulce0403 says, I'm in a weight loss challenge right now. Winner takes all 2K. Oh my gosh. And burrito sounds amazing. Okay, listen. Here's the trick. 0 carb it. No carbs. Nothing, not even like sauce in it. You can easily lose 5 pounds a week and you still won't be starving. So you can eat, beef and sour cream and eggs and cheese, but 0 carbs. Anything that has a carb in it, don't eat it. So you can eat great. That's my secret weapon. If I start to gain weight, I go 0 carb and I lose it really fast. It's awesome, man. It's like you're just burning pure acetone. Bro science. Yeah, we're not going to do any naked gardening stuff. It's just not going to happen. Topic 1 on survey. Dirt farming, the good guide to fixing bad soil, was the number 1 that was chosen. We had 1,100 votes last I saw. It may be over that now. It is beating Vice Gardening by only about 2 points. Do I have a guitar for grocery or gardening? No. I just, whatever guitar is available, I guess, so. Green Country says, I grow the original corn or as close as you can get to it. Big Horse Spotted Corn. Baker Creek might still have some, and we'll have it for sale on our website next year. Oh, awesome. I will get some of that when you put it up. And actually, when you put it up, man, if you ever put anything up that you want me to push, I'm happy to share it. I love what you're doing. Daniel says, tips for establishing my garden when my land is low and stays wet for a while when it rains. Yes. I would make mounded beds. We had some issues with flooding in an area of our garden, and we raised the beds up like this tall. So you rough the whole area up and you make mounds. So basically you have drains and mounds. And that helps a lot. They did that regularly down in the tropics where they had clay soil and heavy raining seasons. Virginia says, I gain it back when I end the 0 carb. Yeah, it really depends on what you're eating and what your body can handle. Oh, your arteries won't clog. It's the vegetable oils that clog your arteries up. But you don't have to just eat half pound of bacon. I mean, you can eat fish and that kind of stuff too. Just make sure you get some oil. The fat really fills you up. Free American 2020 says, I get my field corn seed at a local grain feed store, 50 pounds for about $13. Now, the only problem with that is a lot of those are genetically modified corns. A lot of the, pretty much most of the corn that you're probably going to get in a feed store would be genetically modified, so. What gardening area are you beating by 2 points? Tubular Topher says, we were talking about what book topic I should write next, whether it should be a book on food forest gardening, whether I was going to do a book on vice gardening, tobacco, caffeine, alcohol, and sugar, or a book on restoring and fixing bad soil, which I can tap Steve Solomon to help me write as well, which is awesome. So I was going through some of these different lists. There's a poll in the community section of my channel, and in that poll post I asked everybody, so we had over 1,100 votes, and the one that's winning is Dirt Farming, the good guide to fixing bad soil. Thank you, Jerry. Glad you're here, man. Yes, definitely add an agave, or add a few agaves. They're easy. I do not know any gopher deterring plants. Tammy says, is it okay to put pine bark on the vegetable gardens? Yeah, it doesn't break down very well. It breaks down slowly, but it does have the benefits of mulching and keeping the ground cool. How about some Bob Marley? You're going to get me demonetized. Yeah. My wife saw my daughter eat dirt, so I went inside the house and I got her a spoon. Daniel says, thanks, I'm trying to do a big single row this year. I had previously done raised beds because the ground stays wet. I just can't do as much raised beds as I would need this year. Yeah, just raise every row over the ground by about a foot. So you just rough it up and then just mound it. Mound them up. Makes a difference. Deborah says, I'm new here. Well, welcome. We are trying to build a food forest in Florida near Gainesville. Which books or whatnot should we check out? Our land is sand hills. Yeah, I used to have a food forest near Gainesville. I wrote a little book called Create Your Own Florida Food Forest. Um, but that book is being rewritten right now. The new version of it is supposed to be out within the month. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. So create your own Florida food forest. The book Totally Crazy Easy Florida Gardening will help you as well. But also, I mean, just for free, just go to my website, thesurvivalgardener.com. Thesurvivalgardener.com. And there's tons and tons of articles on food forests and on the food forest that I built in North Florida. You can just use any of that information. I just put tons of stuff up. There's like 2,000 something articles up there. Another thing is in your area, look up Scrubland Farms. That is a nursery that is very near you. Scrubland Farms. I just typed it into the chat. Sam at Scrubland Farms has tons of food forest plants. Please go find him and ask him to hook you up and ask him questions because he is just a genius at it. And he's already working in your area. Sam at Scrubland Farms, and it's farms has a Z on the end. Look up his Facebook and go find him. He is the best resource that you have in that area. Pardon me. Dan says, my tobacco seeds showed up a couple days ago. I decided to make the effort. Oh, that's a lot of fun. Gulbob says, question, what advice do you have for purchasing land for a currently debt-free 24-year-old truck driver? 1 year of successful backyard hobby-level production under the belt. Really want to go all the way. I can't give you much advice on buying land. I'm kind of in between right now. I think that land prices are ridiculous right now. You might consider, it depends on what you're doing. If you're market gardening or raising, like raising beef or something, there's a lot you can do with leasing land to make money off of it and then use that money to buy elsewhere. If you are going to buy land, though, look for an area that is often, you know, that there where the soil was farmed at some point in the past, or where it's traditionally farmed, because you're probably looking at an area that's already good for agriculture. There are some areas where it's just been pine land, or it's too rocky or too slopey or whatever else. So if farmers have discovered that that area is good for farming, it's known for farming, it's traditionally had farming going on in it, that's usually what you want. Try to see if you can get a soil test on any land that you're interested in, because that will tell you if there are any like really weird problems with it. Like it's really acid or really poor. It's better to buy the soil, you know, because you get that chance to buy the soil. If you find a place that's got really good soil, that's great. Even if you have to clear some of the woods and stuff yourself, or tear out an old trailer or something, if the area has good soil, it's so much better than buying a big place that has poor soil. 24 years old. I bought my first house at age 23, and it only had a tiny little yard. I have never had quite enough land. So I wish you the best. And, you know, I try to avoid debt as much as possible, but sometimes it's not possible to avoid debt. So just make sure you don't overextend yourself, and get good soil if you can from the beginning. And you may want to go more rural, but the more rural you go, you know, the land gets more affordable, but the more rural you go, your markets are not as accessible either. Which county in Alabama has good soil but minimal tornadoes and hurricanes? Good question. I don't know. If you can get anywhere that's in the Black Belt, there's good soil, but there are tornadoes. Hurricanes aren't as big a deal, you know. Yeah, tax purchase is not a bad idea. 0.38 acres for around 10K. That's not that bad. Oh, cool, Dan. Dan went searching for cold, hardy avocados and found me. Mobile Bay Prepper says, hey, David, I live over in Daphne, not far from you. I did raised beds with half-inch hardware cloth underneath because of mole problems. Oh yeah, we had some mole issues here too, but nothing that serious. Hope to meet you one of these days. Yeah, you're not that far away. It's like 45 minutes or so. I used to go to church in Daphne. You can always drop me an email, david@floridafoodforests.com. Do I love living in Alabama? Yeah, I do. I love it here. It's friendly. It's friendly because culturally I'm not that different from Alabamians. I like to be left alone. I like to do my own thing. I like to go out in the backyard and shoot my guns. You know, I like to light big fires. You know, I like whiskey and women. One woman. She likes whiskey too. I have not played Skyrim. I'm familiar with it. Let me see. See if I can figure this out here. I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about his groaning, of his precious blood's atoning. Then I repented of my sins and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about his healing, of his cleansing power revealing, how he made the lame to walk again and caused the blind to see. And then I cried, dear Jesus, come and heal my broken spirit. And somehow Jesus came and brought to me the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. I heard about a mansion he has built for me in glory, and I heard about the streets of gold beyond the crystal sea, about the angels singing and the old redemption story. And some sweet day I'll sing up there the song of victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Played that song at my grandmother's funeral. She said, I want you to cheer because I'm going to be in a place that's so much better than where you are. I want victory in Jesus to play. So that's what we That's what we played, and we sang our hearts out. I love it. So anyhow, guys, thank you all for watching. Glad you're all here. If you're interested in the grocery row gardening system and want to participate in the ongoing experiment, you're going to see what's going on in my gardens over this year and in coming into the second year of the temperate version of the grocery row garden thing. But there's the little book. If you want to read about it and learn about it, or just learn about it from my videos, you don't have to buy the book. There's a link in the video description, and I'll probably drop one in the comments too if I remember. Grocery row gardening, the exciting new 1000% original permaculture gardening system by David the Good. So anyhow, no, she said she wanted to be played at her funeral. She was no longer talking at her funeral. My gosh, that's funny. So anyhow, thank you all for joining me. I know we kind of went off the rails a little bit after the first hour. Got a little bro science in there, you know. So, anyhow, you have a great rest of the evening. I hope to film another video tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. See if we can get around to it. We talk about keeping fruit trees small, and we'll look at some of the things that we're doing to do that in the grocery rows before they wake up. So, have a great evening. God bless you all. Catch you next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green.